In 2016, a Texas jury sentenced Enrique Arochi to life in prison for the kidnapping of 23-year-old Christina Morris. But here's the catch. There was no body, no weapon, no confession. So, how do you convict someone when the most important piece is missing? To understand that, we need to go back to a summer night in 2014. Christina Morris was 23 years old, ambitious, close with her family, and building a future she couldn't wait to start. On the night of the 29th of August, 2014, she joined a small group of friends at the Shops at Legacy in Plano. Drinks, laughter, the kind of Friday night that felt ordinary. That night turned into an impromptu reunion. Christina had graduated from Allen High School in 2009. Among the familiar faces was Enrique Arochi, another Allen graduate, though he and Christina weren't close. He had come along through mutual friends who had been invited by Paulina Petrosky. Later, the group went back to Paulina Petrosky's apartment. There, Christina grew emotional. Beginning around 2:12 a.m., she sent a series of texts to her boyfriend, Hunter Foster, asking him to come pick her up. At 2:25 a.m., she told him she had lost her keys. At 2:34 a.m., she texted again to say she had found them. She kept pleading. But Hunter never replied. His last message had been sent more than an hour earlier at 2:03 a.m. Those unanswered messages would stand as Christina's final attempts to reach him that night. By about 3:45 a.m., the gathering wound down. People began leaving, and Christina gathered her things. Her car was parked in the Legacy garage just across the street. She wasn't walking alone. Enrique Arochi, who had also parked in the garage, left at the same time. At 3:55 a.m., security cameras recorded Christina and Arochi walking side by side into the 5725 Legacy Drive garage. Nothing in the footage showed distress. No hesitation. Just two people heading back to their cars after a long night. 2 minutes later, at 3:57 a.m., Enrique's 2010 Chevrolet Camaro reversed from its space. At 3:58 a.m., the car exited the garage onto Bishop Road, and Christina never came out. Saturday morning, the 30th of August, 2014. The sun rose over Plano. But for Christina's family, there was silence. Christina had promised her mother she would stop by that weekend. She never arrived. She had told her boyfriend she was heading home. She never showed up. And she missed a shift at work, something her friends said simply wasn't like her. Her phone had gone silent just after 3:48 a.m. when she sent her final text to Hunter Foster, hoping she'd be able to get inside their Fort Worth home. After that, nothing. Calls rolled to voicemail. No replies. No social media activity. By that afternoon, her family and friends were worried enough to call the police.
911, what's your emergency? I'm trying to report a missing person from my daughter. She hasn't shown up from work. I'm just finding out about this.
Plano officers filed a missing persons report. At first, they treated it as routine, an adult who might have gone off on her own. But Christina's parents, Mark and Anna, insisted this wasn't a disappearance by choice. Their daughter was responsible, reliable, and close with her family. Something was wrong. The first real break came when Christina's car was located inside the Legacy parking garage. It was parked, locked, and undisturbed. Her purse was inside. That detail, her car sitting there untouched, was the moment police began to realize this wasn't a case of someone walking away. It was the start of a crime scene. Christina's family didn't wait for answers. They organized search parties, printed flyers, and canvassed neighborhoods. Strangers began volunteering, combing fields and wooded areas around Plano. Within days, what began as a missing persons call had escalated into a community-wide search. Plano was on edge. And Enrique Arochi, the last person seen with Christina, was suddenly at the center of it. By the 1st of September, Plano detectives had the first critical lead. surveillance video from the Legacy garage. The footage showed Christina and Enrique Arochi walking side by side into the garage at 3:55 a.m. on the 30th of August. 2 minutes later, at 3:57 a.m., Enrique's 2010 Chevrolet Camaro reversed out of its space. At 3:58, it exited the garage. Christina's car, her silver 2000 Toyota Celica, never moved, and she herself was never seen again. Investigators then pulled cell tower data. Between 4:17 and 4:56 a.m., both Christina's and Enrique's phones pinged the same towers along the Dallas North Tollway corridor. By 5:32 a.m., Enrique's phone registered near East Bethany Drive in Allen, close to his home. Christina's phone went dark, never transmitting again. When detectives pressed Enrique, his story shifted.
Something's wrong, Enrique. This picture is in that garage.
At first, he denied even entering the garage with Christina. Confronted with the video, he changed it, now admitting he went inside, but claimed he just passed through. Every contradiction weakened his credibility.
Very next day, he was leaving a lot, going back and forth, saying, hey, I'm gonna go wash my car, hey, I'm gonna go do this.
Co-workers noticed Enrique had fresh scratches and bruises on his hands and forearms. His explanation shifted. First, that he'd been in a fight. Later, that a car rim had fallen on him. Detectives also documented a new dent on the Camaro's right front fender. An accident investigator testified the damage looked less like a punch and more like the impression of a body. That same morning, at 9:58 a.m., Enrique was captured on Kroger surveillance video. He appeared to be wiping down the passenger side of his Camaro and cleaning near the trunk. 3 days later, on the 3rd of September, he paid for an automatic car wash. Detectives seized the Camaro on a warrant. At the Collin County Crime Lab, forensic teams swabbed the trunk mat. But one CSI's instinct changed everything. She swabbed the black rubber gasket lining the trunk, a spot nearly impossible to clean. The results were undeniable. Christina Morris's DNA was on the trunk mat and in the gasket. Experts testified the levels were far too high to be casual transfer. They believed it came from bodily fluids. The probability of error? 1 in 69 quadrillion. The science was clear. Christina had been inside that trunk. The car Enrique swore Christina was never in had just become the loudest witness against him. On the 13th of December 2014, Enrique Arochi was arrested and charged with aggravated kidnapping. The arrest is partly due to DNA samples previously collected, according to Plano police. By September 2016, nearly 2 years after Christina vanished, Enrique Arochi stood trial in a Collin County courtroom. The charge: aggravated kidnapping. The case had no body, no eyewitness to a crime. What prosecutors did have was a mosaic of evidence, circumstantial but damning. How do you prove a kidnapping when the victim has vanished without a trace? They leaned on fragments, surveillance footage, phone records, forensic swabs, and most of all, Arochi's own contradictions. Jurors saw the garage footage, Christina and Enrique walking in together at 3:55 a.m. They watched as his Camaro pulled out minutes later. Christina never came out. Her Celica never moved. They studied cell records. Between 4:17 and 4:56 a.m., Enrique's and Christina's phones pinged the same towers down the Dallas North Tollway. Then Christina's line went silent. Enrique's kept moving. They heard about the scratches on Enrique's arms, the dent in his Camaro's fender. An accident investigator testified it looked less like a punch and more like the impression of a body. Then came science. Christina Morris's DNA was identified on the Camaro's trunk mat and in the rubber gasket sealing the trunk. Experts testified the DNA was consistent with bodily fluids, not casual transfer. One analyst put the probability of error at 1 in 69 quadrillion. And then, prosecutors gave them something else: the chance to see the evidence with their own eyes. The jury was led outside to inspect the actual black Chevrolet Camaro Arochi drove that night. They examined the trunk, the same trunk where Christina's DNA had been found. For the first time, the jurors weren't just hearing about the crime. They were standing inches from the scene of it. The prosecution argued the evidence told one story. Christina entered that garage alive, and Enrique Arochi left with her in his trunk. The defense insisted it was coincidence that DNA could have transferred from a casual contact months earlier, but the weight of the contradictions, the timelines, and the science told a different truth. After 17 hours of deliberation, the jury returned its verdict.
The jury find the defendant guilty of aggravated kidnapping as charged in the
Guilty
indictment.
of aggravated kidnapping. 12 days later, Judge Mark Rush handed down the maximum penalty allowed by law: life in prison, 99 years, plus a $10,000 fine, a rare conviction in a case without a body. Enrique Arochi would not even be eligible for parole until the year 2046. For Christina's family, it was justice, but not closure. Their daughter was still missing. Even after Enrique Arochi was convicted, the Morris family still lived in limbo, because justice in court wasn't closure. For them, Christina was still missing. Her mother, Johnny McElroy, organized search after search. Volunteers combed wooded fields, creeks, and farmland across North Texas. Some searches drew hundreds of people, others just a handful, but they never stopped. Candlelight vigils kept her memory alive. Flyers with Christina's face stayed taped to shop windows and pinned to church bulletin boards. The message was clear: she was gone, but she was not forgotten. Search teams brought in dogs. They scoured fields in Plano, in Allen, in Anna. Every tip, every clue, every possibility checked, rechecked, ruled out. But for more than 3 years, nothing surfaced. Johnny once said, "I can't stop. I have to know where my daughter is." It wasn't just a mother's persistence. It was her promise to Christina. Between 2014 and 2018, Christina's case became one of Texas's largest volunteer search efforts. And while Enrique Arochi sat in a prison cell, the Morris family kept searching for answers that science and the courtroom had not yet given them. For Christina's family, justice had come in 2016, but closure? That never arrived. Because without her body, there were still questions that would never stop echoing. Then, nearly 4 years after she vanished, the silence was broken. On the 7th of March, 2018, construction crews in the town of Anna, just 30 miles north of Plano, made a chilling discovery.
This morning while clearing brush from a wooded area in Anna, just east of Highway 75. Police have conducted previous searches for the body of Christina Morris in that
skeletal remains hidden in a patch of land where new homes were being built. Investigators rushed to the scene, and within days, dental records confirmed the truth. The remains belonged to Christina Morris. Her family stood before cameras once again, but this time there was no plea for help. Only heartbreak. Christina's sister, Sarah, called it the worst day of our lives. After years of searching, years of vigils, years of hoping, the truth had finally come home, and it was devastating. The spot where Christina was found lay less than a mile from a cell tower that Enrique Arochi's phone had pinged the day after her disappearance. It was confirmation of what investigators had argued in court years earlier. Data had already told the story. The Earth had just caught up. For the Morris family, Christina's story didn't end in the courtroom. Her remains were found in a field in Anna, Texas, in March 2018, 3.5 years after she vanished. The discovery brought an end to the search, but not to the grief. Plano will always remember the bright young woman who never came home. For months, her face was on billboards, flyers, and in the hearts of strangers who searched. Her disappearance and the tireless effort to find her reminded North Texas how fragile life can be and how strong a community can become when united by hope. Enrique Arochi is serving a life sentence. His name will forever be tied to Christina's, but for the wrong reasons. What stands taller than his crime is the resilience of Christina's loved ones. Her mother, Johnny, her father, Mark, her friends who refused to let her be forgotten. Justice was served, but closure never fully comes. For some stories, silence lingers, and Christina Morris's silence still echoes across Plano, Texas. This was the story of Christina Morris. If you want to see more true crime documentaries told with care, subscribe and watch the next case here. Because every story deserves to be remembered.